she informed those superiors that she would never work with Detective Moretti on a case. Let's take a look at this motion while we're waiting for the trial to start, should we? I mean, this is crazy. This is literally nuts. The motion to recuse State Attorney's Office of the 17th Judicial Circuit in and for Broward County, Florida. This is the motion that's built around what we were just talking about, kicking the prosecutors, not one of them, not two of them, all of them off the case for improper conduct, or dare we say, misconduct. Comes now the defendant, Jamel Demons, by and through undersigned counsel, and moves the Honorable Court pursuant to this rule, Florida Rules of Criminal Procedure, to issue an order recusing the state's attorney for the 7th Judicial Circuit and the state attorney's office for the 17th Judicial Circuit and all of its employees from any part of the prosecution in the above styled cause. As grounds for said motion, the defendant states the following. Here is their allegations. The defendant is currently charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and faces the possibility of death as a sentence. 2, the defendant has previously gone through trial and on this matter, and said trial ended in a hung jury. Huge. The defendant is scheduled to begin trial on this matter on October 9th, 2023, Monday. 4, however, this is where it gets good. This is probably why they make you pay for it. However, in the past week, the defense has learned of a blatant Brady violation. Again, a Brady violation is the failure to turn over evidence exculpatory or favorable to the defendant. The prosecution has a duty to do that whether you ask for it or not. So they're saying they blatantly failed to turn over evidence that was helpful or advantageous to YNW MELLY, i.e., the lead detective in this case, Detective Mark Moretti, solicited another officer, that being a BSO deputy, to lie for him and state that the deputy was present when Detective Moretti served a search warrant on Ms. King. Ms. King being YNW's Melly's mother. If you can remember, Detective Moretti, the lead detective on the case, allegedly executed this search warrant against YNW Melly's mother and allegedly used excessive force in getting her cell phone when he was apparently the only person in the room, and he solicited, he says it was a joke, but he allegedly solicited to lie for him. So yeah, he said to this guy, if they ask you, tell them you were present when I executed the search warrant. And he said, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And it was so egregious that one of the prosecutors on this case said she would never work on a case with Mark Moretti again because he has said that he would lie about this. So 5, there is no dispute. Let me make sure I can see myself here. Boom. Yeah. 5, there is no dispute that in fact the deputy was not present. The prosecutors, the detectives, everybody acknowledges the guy that said he would lie and the guy that Moretti asked to lie was not there. 6, very shortly after the deposition, Ms. Boutros, another prosecutor, let her superiors know of Detective Moretti's willingness to fabricate testimony. Again, she informed those superiors that she would never work with Detective Moretti on a case. He was the lead detective. He was the one, the star witness for the prosecution in the first trial. Can you imagine if they get him on the stand in the second trial, that cross-examination? Can you imagine the cross-examination in that case? Detective Moretti, have you ever in your career asked someone to lie for you and say they were there when this search warrant was when a search warrant was served? If he says no, they call one of the prosecutors as a witness to rebut him and to impeach him. If he says yes, Game over. The jury hears that this guy has asked people to lie for him in the past. Can you imagine they call on when they impeach him? Have you ever done this? Second question. Isn't it true that there are prosecutors sitting over here or that have worked on the previous trial? There are prosecutors that have said that they will not work with you because you are willing to lie and fabricate evidence in a capital murder case. This is cooked. I could see the trial going either way originally. I eventually decided that they probably had enough evidence to convict him, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. Now, in this case, their lead detective is fucking toast, regardless how this goes. This is not going to go well for the prosecution on the retrial. I mean, I would never predict how the jury would go, but oof, if they put their star detective, the lead detective on this case on the stand, and the first question is, have you ever asked someone to lie for you? And the second question is, are there prosecutors that will not work with you because of your willingness to lie and fabricate evidence in a capital murder case? Done. Goose cooked. Yikes. So yes, she informed her superiors that she would never work with Detective Moretti on a case. So since October 2022, prior to any trial commencing in this cause, Assistant State Attorney Christine Bradley, who was assigned to the case, knew of this Brady material. So before the first trial started, they knew this guy had committed this violation. They knew that the prosecutor's office had not turned over evidence favorable to MELLY. Yet they still went ahead with the trial. On September 29, 2023, just a few days ago, counsel for the defense was able to depose Assistant State Attorney Michelle Boutros. Again, we're going to hear a lot about her today. The undersigned is the lawyers, is still trying to unwind exactly what transpired within the state attorney's office. It is safe to say, based on what was divulged at deposition of Ms. Boutros, that should Detective Moretti be called as a witness in this case, if the prosecution calls lead detective Moretti as a witness in this case, Ms. Boutros certainly would be called by the defense to testify as to Detective Moretti's credibility. That is a huge shot across the bow. That's a huge warning shot. You call the lead detective on this case. We're calling the previous prosecutor, one of the previous prosecutors, to come here and testify as an impeachment witness against the lead detective. That is devastating to the case. From the previous Brady responses filed by the state over the last week, it is obvious that Ms. Bradley had her own conversations with Detective Moretti as to soliciting a BSO deputy to lie. Oh my God. Being that Detective Moretti's credibility may be one of the biggest issues at trial, Ms. Bradley has made herself a witness. We've seen a prosecutor potentially making himself a witness in the Zachariah Anderson case when the lead prosecutor went and met with one of the witnesses at a crime scene. So this is again the thing here where you have one of the prosecutors talking to one of the detectives about possibly falsifying evidence. So, further to defendant's motion to suppress evidence, Detective Moretti's credibility is automatically an issue since he signed the affidavits in this case. The affidavit saying that this person witnessed him serve the search warrant when clearly that person was nowhere near the location, the scene when they served the warrant. He was outside the room. Therefore, again, certainly Ms. Boutros, possibly Ms. Bradley, who was the black-haired prosecutor that we saw during most of the trial, would be witnesses. As to the motion to dismiss for government and prosecutorial misconduct, which is another thing we're going to get to, that's another motion that was filed. A motion to dismiss. As to the motion to dismiss for government and prosecutorial misconduct in violation of the defendant's due process rights under the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution, it has become clear that decisions on providing the defense with this unmistakably Brady material reached the highest realm of the state's attorney's office. Ms. Boutros testified that Mr. Pryor, Ms. Falk, and Mr. Killoran over the approximately last year have been involved in this matter on several occasions. Therefore, at the motion to dismiss stage, at this time, the defense knows that Assistant State Attorney Michelle Boutros, Assistant State Attorney Christine Bradley, Assistant State Attorney Chris Killoran, Assistant State Attorney Regina Falk, Assistant State Attorney Stephen Zakor, Assistant State Attorney Joel Silverstein, and State Attorney Harold Pryor will, not might, not may, not could, not should, will be called as witnesses. Essentially, the defense plans to call every single member of the prosecutor's office as witness. Not every single member, because I assume it's a huge public defender's office, prosecutor's office in Broward County, but a large number of the prosecutors, especially the higher ups in the prosecutor's office, if they call Moretti as a witness, if they call their lead detective as a witness. As referenced above, these are the state attorney witnesses that are known and definite at this time. However, we know this matter also went before appellate attorneys within the state attorney's office. You're going to get some of the appellate lawyers too. We do not know what their input was. We do not know what their role was in the decision not to provide Brady to the defense. So not to provide this evidence that is favorable to the defense. These people may also be added as witnesses. Miss Bradley herself has made herself a fact witness, though probably the most important piece of evidence in this case, that being the credibility, through probably the most important point of evidence in this case, that being the credibility of Detective Moretti. So seriously, the lead detective is the most important witness in this entire trial. He is the one that investigated everything. He's the one that came up with all this. And now you're calling into question his credibility by calling the prosecutors as witnesses. The prosecutors are going to say they said they would never work with him again because of his willingness to falsify evidence against a defendant in a capital murder case. Therefore, Ms. Bradley individually is certainly conflicted in representing the state in this matter. And again, we saw this in the Zachariah Anderson case. If you are a witness, you cannot be a lawyer in that case. I don't think that Judge Schrader handled it properly in the Zachariah Anderson case. I think the prosecutor Gravely should have been completely thrown off the case. But here we have the same things. Like, these people are going to be called as material witnesses in this case. Therefore, they cannot act as a party or as a prosecutor in the matter. That's what they're saying. And I think they're correct. But what do I know? I'm just an unfrozen caveman Utah lawyer living in Korea, but I think they're correct. However, given the fact that at a minimum there would be Assistant State Attorney Michelle Boutros as a witness, and there will be conflicting testimony by Assistant State Attorney Christine Bradley, it is untenable for the state to be the prosecutors in this case. For one, the fact that the Assistant State Attorney prosecuting the matter while Ms. Bradley is on the witness stand will be from the same judicial circuit as Ms. Bradley. So yeah, they're saying the people that are going to cross-examine Ms. Bradley are the people in her own office. Ms. Bradley being called by the state as a witness would be tantamount to the state attorney's office vouching for Ms. Bradley's credibility, undermining that the assistant state attorney, undermining that of assistant state attorney Michelle Boutros. Nothing could destroy a witness's credibility more than her own office calling another witness to contradict her. So yeah, they're saying that if we call her as a witness and she says that the lead prosecutor was willing to lie and falsify evidence, then the prosecution is going to have to call a different witness to impeach the credibility of their own prosecutor. They're saying that's just not going to happen. In essence, there are too many witnesses from the 17th Judicial Circuit State Attorney's Office who have testimony germane to the motion to dismiss, suppress, and the trial for the State Attorney's Office to remain as the prosecutors in this case. They want an entirely different prosecutor's office to take over this case. Allowing the state's attorney's office and specifically Christine Bradley to continue as counsel in this cause violates defendants' due process rights guaranteed by both Florida Constitution and the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Wherefore, the defendant requests this honorable court grant this motion and recuse the state's attorney's office of the 17th Judicial Circuit from this case. I hear, and see, this is the important part. This is his new lawyer, Mr. Benjamin, swearing under oath, under possible penalty of perjury, that this is all true to the best of his knowledge. I hereby certify that the foregoing is electronically filed and is copied. So here he is signing it. End of document. Thank you so much, Nicholas Dara, for sending this. You sort of saved my ass there. And MG Law, you tried, apparently. You may have sent it somewhere I didn't see it, but I love you anyway, MG Law, because you're great. So there we go. What do you guys think of that? Isn't that ridiculous? They want to kick the prosecutors off this case because the prosecution witnessed the lead detective. Well, they didn't witness him doing it. They knew that the lead detective asked another officer to lie and say he was present when a search warrant was executed, allegedly with excessive force against the defendant's mother, and then lie about it. Lie and say he was there when he wasn't. And then to fail to turn over this information advantageous to the defense. And it doesn't necessarily prove he's innocent, but it is advantageous to the defendant because they can use that information to impeach the lead detective. The lead detective has asked someone to falsify evidence in a death penalty, capital murder case. And one of the prosecutors said she will not work with the guy because of that. This is a shitstorm of the highest order.